two, 1 2. Testing, test. 1 2, 1 2. Test 1 2, 1 2. Test. Test. Test 1 2. some cute songs queued, and we're gonna check out this animated book review of one of my favorite books, 33 Strategies of War.
The art of war is to win without bloodshed or the use of force, the minimum necessary use of violence. Part 1. Self-directed warfare. Declare war on your enemies. In 401 BC, Xenophon led Greek mercenaries into Persian territory. When their leader died and they had nothing more to fight for, surrounded by the enemy, they had to become a concentrated force, fighting their way back home. The soldiers' spirit was crushed, they had weak morale and started fighting each other. Xenophon united them, thus defeating the inner enemy. Focusing on survival, the prospect of getting home alive to family and friends made them persevere. You cannot swing a sword without knowing what to hit with it. It's you against the world, and it's you against yourself. Fight your inner demons. Do not let your mind, your emotions, and your ego control you. Know yourself, and external enemies won't be able to harm you. You can stand up against anyone.
I love this principle of this is one of my favorite books, and the 33 strategies, and just how to win a war without even fighting. I think like a lot of days we think of warfare and we think of guns and stuff like that, but it's the food you eat, the people you follow, who you let influence you, your psychological. There's so many different aspects that a lot of people don't think about when they think about warfare. They just think about the Achilles version, when a lot of the philosophers that got the hearts and mind people were actually leaders, and doing that, you're able to make people work together, help people work together without influencing and trying to manipulate, just by speaking truth. And that's what I take from the first strategy of war.
The art of war is to win without bloodshed or the use of force, the minimum necessary use of violence. Part 1. Self-directed warfare. Declare war on your enemies. In 401 BC, Xenophon led Greek mercenaries into Persian territory. When their leader died and they had nothing more to fight for, surrounded by the enemy, they had to become a concentrated force, fighting their way back home. The soldiers' spirit was crushed, they had weak morale and started fighting each other. Xenophon united them, thus defeating the inner enemy. Focusing on survival, the prospect of getting home alive to family and friends made them persevere. You cannot swing a sword without knowing what to hit with it. It's you against the world, and it's you against yourself. Fight your inner demons. Do not let your mind, your emotions, and your ego control you. Know yourself, and external enemies won't be able to harm you. You can stand up against anyone. Number 2. Do not fight the last war. Miyamoto Musashi is one of history's most dangerous samurais because he used to switch up his fighting pattern, changing his tactics regularly to keep his opponents guessing and on the defensive. The nervousness and paranoia this inflicted on his rivals made them easy targets. What has worked in the past may not work again. Forget the past. Adapt to current times, ever changing, ever evolving. George Bernard Shaw said, "The only man I know who behaves sensibly is my tailor. He takes my measurements anew each time he sees me. The rest go on with their old measurements and expect me to fit them." Number 3.
I love that principle. If you're still looking at warfare from the perspective of high ground, land, sea, and stuff like that, you forget about air and space, political, and everything else. Um, Yeah, that's pretty dope.
3. Amidst the turmoil of events, do not lose your presence of mind. Lord Nelson disobeyed his hysterical commander in the battle at Copenhagen in 1801, keeping a calm head in a most hectic situation. By disregarding his commander's authority and seeing the battlefield for what it was, Lord Nelson defeated the Danish navy. You have to stay alert when everyone else is in uproar. Do not be intimidated by chaos. Do not panic. You seek out the conflict, reacting swiftly when the opportunity presents itself. Number 4. Create a sense of urgency and desperation. Fyodor Dostoevsky knew his days were numbered. Facing his execution, he made use of his time by creating each of his works as if they were his last, because they very well could have been. Once you come
Like that principle is like who do I think about that? Like when I think about that, I think like Eminem writing. Like a lot of his shit was like fuck the world. Um, there is no tomorrow. It's just the being in the present moment and battling all his demons in a lyrical form. And authors do that in a form of writing, which is very admirable. Um,
face to face with death, you eliminate life's non-essentials. You overcome trivialities we foolishly care about every day, taking our lives for granted. Dostoevsky's work is exceptional because he was restless. He did not seek comfort. You cannot wait for the right time. You are never fully prepared to start. To fui ego eris. As you are, I was. As I am, you will be. A gravestone inscription reminding you that death is unavoidable. Part 2. Organizational team warfare.
that's what I love about like a lot of the Stoics and just accepting that everybody dies, but what makes you a great person is what you do when you're on Earth.
Avoid the snare of groupthink. General George
This is probably reason why I'm showing you guys this video, and it's just today I think a lot of people are getting caught up in groupthink, whether it's this side or that side. Both sides are capable of being wrong, and if you don't have the ability, the freedom of speech, or anything else like that to admit you're wrong or change your mind, then you're pretty much doomed. Like it's a thought virus, groupthink. You have to be able to think for yourself. You have to be able to pull back and actually define yourself. Because if you don't think for yourself, yourself ceases to exist.
Marshall taught his philosophies on leadership to a handful of protégés he'd put into authoritative positions with high-risk responsibilities. One of these men was Dwight Eisenhower. The general could rely on his subordinates as they held the same beliefs and ran their positions according to his vision. You want a chain of command you can rely on. You are the general, but you cannot have your head everywhere. Put remote systems and loyal leaders into place that will guarantee the desired outcome. Use them to balance your weaknesses with their strengths and ensure they always keep you up to date. In any case, be careful not to give up too much of your own authority and leverage. Number 6. Segment your forces. In 1805, Napoleon Bonaparte faced an attack by Austrian troops led by Karl Mack, upon which Napoleon divided his troops and sent them into battle with specific instructions of surrounding the enemy. The French units were free to move, flexible, and quick. The Austrian troops surrendered. This is the opposite of concentrating your forces. Hence, it's on you to know when to unite and when to divide your army, slow but strong, or fast and precise.
Slow but strong, but fast and precise. Many people are slow and strong. Small segments are fast and precise.
Number 7. Transform your war into a crusade. 281 BC, Hannibal arranged competitive war games to demonstrate how far his men would go to join the upcoming fight, to show what they were made of. This is a lesson in leadership. Managing men well means leading by example. You use the effects of emotion by emphasizing that you are fighting for a noble cause and that God is on your side. It's all about the team, its spirit, the collective energy, and the achievement of the mission ahead. You punish and reward behavior accordingly. You bond together through each action and get rid of the black sheep who disrupt your leadership.
If you're serious about your podcast, stop recording.
Interesting.
Get rid of the black sheep who disrupt your leadership.
No Kool-Aid, discipline, transform your war into crusade, lead by example, have a cause, something that you want. What do I want? This would go into the Steven Crowder type stuff where he was talking about the contractors that he received and how many other contracts that he received that are really bad. The cause that I'm working for is to teach people about contracts, about unity, and being able to create more leverage for independent artists. And I think news media, independent artists, independent news media, it's all one and the same because a lot of times they get the same bullshit contracts that can try to control a lot of what you say or don't say. One of my favorite record labels is like Interscope and Aftermath and Shady and all that, but I kind of noticed ever since they signed with Apple, they become really poppy. They haven't had a record with the same type of angst or anger that they used to make in a long time. And I like albums. Like, I like to listen to the whole album from front to back. And back in the days, I used to listen to like Nine Inch Nails, Dre, M50. But I think looking at the Steven Crowder contracts, I see how a corporation can incentivize an organization to stop promoting things that would go against their sponsors. Is the same thing that happened in TV and that type of censorship. This is more of a back-end censorship. So everything that they say or do has to co-line with whatever the sponsors want. And I want to say that's kind of like bullshit. More artists should find their niche and should find sponsors that align with their own thoughts. And they should be able to create the art or present the news in a way that's unhindered by sponsorships that want to take away your freedom of speech. And I want to unite people. Like a lot of corporations. What's another example? We'll go into unity. A lot of corporations are union busting. Amazon and Starbucks. A lot of their workers are pushing from union, and they've been getting a lot of backlash from corporate, and they're being silenced. And I don't think that's right. Especially when the wages are completely terrible, unlivable. You don't have enough money to own a home. You don't have enough money to save for an emergency. Everybody's living paycheck to paycheck, and they're selling coffee at $5, which is pretty horrible if you ask me. So the mission is to have freedom of speech so more people actually have leverage and are able to talk about what they actually want. Using more money, not to sound greedy, but we've been getting the shit in the stick since 1971. And we need the discipline to go along with this because it's going to get hard. Large corporations are going to push back against us really bad and try to censor us and try to destroy us and get us out of the way or buy us off as fast as possible. But we have this shared history with us. Because we're all Americans. Like, no matter if you're what side you're on, like if you're making minimum wage, you're getting the shit in the steak. They can try to make you hate somebody for a political view, or you can actually take out your anger at the right people. And no Kool-Aid. So that's not just, going along to get along type of shit.
Leadership. Part 3. Defensive warfare. Pick your battles. Winston Churchill said of the mission ahead, you punish and reward behavior accordingly. You bond together through each action and get rid of the black sheep who disrupt your leadership.
So people that try to come in and disrupt your leadership, no Kool-Aid.
Part 3. Defensive warfare. Pick your battles. Winston Churchill said, you will never reach your destination if you stop and throw stones at every dog that barks. Now the trick is in discerning which dogs not only bark, but also bite. You'd be surprised.
That goes to like corporations, like if we look up Pinkertons and stuff like that, and how they try to distract you from the point. And I think picking your battles is probably the most important part. Like a lot of people argue capitalism versus communism, but in reality, the downfall of both systems is wealth inequality, and we've seen it happen with both systems. And as long as we're debating this ideological form, we're completely missing the real form. Because a lot of people, if you're a capitalist or a communist, if you're wealthy, you're having a better life than people that are not wealthy. And the people that aren't wealthy or poor, they just want to have a better life. And that's what I'm trying to help them do. So that's the battles that I'm trying to choose.
How few of them actually do, and even fewer ever get the opportunity. Control your ego and ignore the insignificant rest. Do not let pride worsen your situation. Some battles you cannot win. Never start them in the first place. Know your limits. Some battles you can win, but at too high a cost. A Pyrrhic victory will ruin you. Make your battles worth your time and resources. Why would you fight a battle with grim odds when you don't have to? Your energy is limited. Don't waste it. Number 9. Turn the tables. Do not let pride worsen your situation. Some battles you cannot win. Never start them in the first place. Know your limits. Some battles you can win, but at too high a cost. A Pyrrhic victory will ruin you. Make your battles worth your time and resources. Why would you fight a battle with grim odds when you don't have to? Your energy is limited.
Like, I think a lot of times, one way that corporations stop people from organizing and unionizing is they were to pick the lawsuit route. They sue a company for lost wages and they get paid off, but the rest of the people, they're unaware of it, and they sign non-disclosure agreements so that way the people can't be aware about it. So I think it's best to actually take these grievances with companies and make them public, because at the end of the day, a company doesn't have feelings. A company doesn't care. The masses will care. But if you choose to battle the large corporations on your own, a lot of times people are going to lose. So being able to educate people and help people organize is a greater cause.
Don't waste it. Number 9. Turn the tables. In the 1944 Democratic presidential race, the Republican Party slandered Franklin Roosevelt, but he did not respond until they attacked his dog. Roosevelt humiliated his opponent by defending his pet friend and
Roosevelt was the original John Wick. He went all through this shit for his puppy.
exposing their desperate move for what it was. Roosevelt was not easily irritated. He let his opponents make the first move, waiting and biding his time. This way, he could analyze their strategy and attack his rival's weaknesses. In history, defenders are more often victorious than attackers. We humans do not like aggressors. We don't like bullies. We have a heart for the victims of such attacks, even when they lay the bait and provoke it. Stay calm and turn the situation into your favor. Number 10. Create a threatening presence. 1862, Stonewall Jackson put on a dominant act intimidating George McClellan during the American Civil War by pointing to all of his opponent's flaws. Build the reputation of being a force of nature, a force to be reckoned with. Unpredictability, madness, sudden and bold aggression is terrifying. Plant a seed of doubt.
See, what I like about this tactic is it goes both ways. You either point out other people's flaws, or you do the Eminem approach and you point out your flaws before they can point out your flaws. So you remove their ammo before they even point the gun at you. And then you kind of have them off guard. So it's also kind of like the experiment paradox. Like when you're observing an experiment or object, you actually change that experiment or object a little bit. So if you know the games they're playing, and I know the games they're playing, and we speak about them, it completely changes the game. And so far, the games that they've been playing have pretty much been straight up out of the book. So it's understanding it and being able to change it and knock them off guard, and then create a whole new game. And then that's when the best ideas come to pass, the best people rise. And the people that receive the playbook and are going through the playbook play by play, they lose.
Doubt in your opponent's mind and feed his paranoia. Make them believe they cannot win and they will retreat. To scare them means to break them. But be careful. Your opponent may call your bluff if you're unwilling to back up your words with action. Don't merely bark. Number 11. Trade space for time. In the beginning of the Chinese Civil War, Mao Zedong's communists were forced to retreat. Had the National Party fought them at that time, they would have won. But the communists took the opportunity and gathered support by uniting the peasantry, defeating the nationalists in 1949 with a decided advantage. This is similar to the surrender tactic. Napoleon Bonaparte said, "Space we can recover, time never." You grant your opponent a small win in order to take up more space, grow your leverage, and weaken the enemy before battle. Frustrate them by fighting on your terms. This is classic Sun Tzu's Art of War material. The enemy gives you chase, you retreat. The enemy retreats, you pursue. It's all about the advantage that determines the end result. Part 4. Offensive Warfare. Lose the battles, but win the war. Alexander the Great planned his campaign far into the future, which distinguished him from other leaders. One example of his purposeful goals was the capturing of all greater Persian Mediterranean ports, effectively leaving the enemy without a navy and taking the sea component out of future equations. It wasn't obvious until it was too late. Even though it has become a cliché, think several moves ahead. Determine the bullseye, plan to the end, and confuse your opponent, leaving him unable to read your actions, since they don't seem to have a connection. In other words, make them focus on the trees so that they can't see the forest. Number 13. Know your enemy. Prince Metternich met Napoleon Bonaparte, hoping he could find his weak spots. A few years later, he had helped arrange Napoleon's marriage to Marie-Louise, who wasn't the most pleasant wife. Napoleon's defeat at Waterloo had also been the work of Metternich's spying in broad daylight. Know thyself and know thy rival. One of the greatest skills in war, as in seduction, as in business, is the ability to read people. Master non-verbal communication, hide your observations, and devise the most effective tactics based on your insights. Number 14. Overwhelm resistance with speed and suddenness. In 1218, Genghis Khan overcame his opponent, the one who shall not be named, with the Blitzkrieg strategy. He segmented his forces for mobility, lost small battles on purpose, then shifted to serious and fast attacks, which the enemy had not anticipated. You start by making slow moves to set the pace to which your rival adjusts, then exploit the Überraschungsmoment to win the war quickly.
And it's kind of like the Ali Rope-a-dope. Like, yeah, he goes after the opponent, he swings every once in a while, he lets it come in, and then he's just wearing him out. He's letting him swing, and then Ali comes and does what Ali does.
With speed and suddenness. In 1218, Genghis Khan overcame his opponent, the one who shall not be named, with the Blitzkrieg strategy. He segmented his forces for mobility, lost small battles on purpose, then shifted to serious and fast attacks, which the enemy had not anticipated. You start by making slow moves to set the pace to which your rival adjusts, then exploit the Überraschungsmoment to win the war quickly. Number 15. Control the dynamic. In 1942, during the Second World War, Erwin Rommel fought the British on the North African deserts, using smaller units, keeping them on the move and out of the opponent's reach. In order to reduce the gap between events and status updates, he'd often join the front line. You're in control. Be assertive. Zugzwang. Navigate your opponent by forcing him to move directly into your area of defense. The only downside to control might be not admitting that you have it. Number 16. Hit them where it hurts. In 209 BC, Publius Scipio conquered Nova Carthago, which was the Carthaginian capital in Spain. Scipio destroyed Hannibal's army's vital supply lines. Within 5 years, Scipio captured Carthage and ended Hannibal's saga. Everything has a center of gravity. Take a hold of it and unbalance the remaining structure, cutting supply lines, belief systems, and chains of command. Number 17. Defeat them in detail. Divide et impera, the divide and conquer strategy. In 490 BC, the Persians landed on the plains of Marathon, 24.
See, this is another great reason why, if you look at the whole entire world from the lens of the whole entire world through the lens of warfare, any newspaper, politician, or anybody like that that tries to create a divide, like between Americans by either going, oh, left or right, male versus female, cisgender versus gays, is trying to divide and impera, divide and conquer. A lot of I've never been about a lot of people that go to war. They say they fight for your rights to say what you want and believe how you want to believe. They fight for your rights to say that, so that way, hopefully, we don't destroy ourselves from within. I don't understand politicians and people that see gain in bringing other people down. Like if you were in a work environment and everybody was talking shit about everybody else in the work environment and they were angry and fighting and always blaming each other and never taking accountability, you would think that's a shitty work environment. Why would we want that in politics? And the people that we look up to that are supposed to control our system, control our deficit, control our budget. Maybe that's the reason why our system has been self-imploding for years. We tout our military might, but we have more people incarcerated than we do in the military. And I think that's a tragedy. That says that we, as Americans as a whole, have more people that are criminals than our soldiers. And we should be fostering intelligence and soldiers and people that want to bring peace instead of fostering industrialized criminal system. I think I googled it the other day. It's like 1.5 in the 1.5 in the military and 2 million incarcerated. We are a nation defeated if we don't turn the tides of this boat, and I hope we do.
4 miles near Athens, splitting their army at night, planning to attack Athens by Marathon. 24 miles near Athens, splitting them in detail. Divide et impera, the divide and conquer strategy. In 490 BC, the Persians landed on the plains of Marathon, 24 miles near Athens, splitting their army at night, planning to attack Athens by sea. The Greeks attacked the remaining Persians, then ran all the way back to Athens to safeguard the city. This is the origin of running a marathon. Divide large units and their easier targets. When your enemies are on the defensive, they will try to unite and face you with their full force. You do not allow them such strength. Number 18. Expose and attack your enemy's soft flank. In 1796, Napoleon Bonaparte baited Baron Joseph Alvinci into charging forward, hence exposing his army's flank. This was the opportunity Napoleon had hoped for, surrounding and defeating his opponent once more. Disorient your rival, make him drop his guard through indirection, then deliver a powerful blow to his exposed and vulnerable side. Number 19. Envelop the enemy. In 1778, the Zulu warriors fought the British in Natal, pressuring them with surprise attacks out of nowhere by knowing their home territory by heart. Enclosing the opponent does a number on his mental well-being. Feeling trapped, they will retreat if they can. Number 20. Maneuver them into weakness. Bokuden, a master samurai who was practicing the art of winning without hands, was challenged by a young swordsman.
What is weakness in our nation today? I think a lot of the food we eat, a lot of the food we're inspired to eat. I would like follow the normal, regular, like eat 3 meals a day, have carbs and all this shit. And it wasn't, I don't think it was good for me. Like at my largest, I was like 460 pounds. I would eat, and then I'd be hungry. And I think it's a lot of to do with the sugar. I switched to keto within a year, and I was doing intermittent fasting and fasted cardio, and I lost like 140 pounds. I still need to lose weight, but by far this is the best method I've seen for losing weight. I feel better, I feel stronger, I feel less inflamed. What are another weaknesses that are being used, that are strategies of war? Drugs. A lot of drugs, if you get people addicted to drugs, you control them. You can make them do horrendous things, or they just like have people overdose and stuff like that. And those are all terrible forms of things that happen. And it's because of our weakness as a nation.
Kuden decided they should have the duel on an island. As soon as the swordsman left the boat, the Grandmaster pushed it away from the shore, leaving the young warrior stranded. Outsmart the opponent, avoiding an advantageless direct attack through calculated moves, which grant you greater control over the situation at hand.
I love that principle because if he was an egocentric person and he went on the island and they got in a battle, there's no guarantees in battles. You can fall, trip, hit your head, be struck by lightning, so many things. And then just if he were to be an egocentric person, he could have easily fought somebody for no reason on the island. I think the tricking him to move, fight on the island and then just bouncing is like, yeah, I don't got time for this shit. You're stuck here, and I'm gone. Like, I think a lot of times it's like, if you let the anger get the best of you, you could end up in a fight and then, knock somebody out. You win the fight, but they fall, they hit their head on the concrete, and, that ends up being manslaughter or something like that. So, I think it's always the best to avoid conflict, whenever you can, and fight for things that matter. Don't let your ego get in the way, and you should be good.
Advantageless direct attack through calculated moves, which grant you greater control over the situation at hand. Number 21. Negotiate while advancing. In 359 BC, Alexander the Great's father, Philip II of Macedonia, came to power, Athens refusing to recognize him. He spoke of peace and prosperity as he continued to expand his empire, uniting other Greek city-states to lead an attack on the Persians. Negotiate, willing to come to a win-win arrangement, but keep moving, focusing on your organization's progress. You avoid immediate conflict while furthering your interests. Your demands are bold, yet ever more reasonable as your shadow.
And back to the negotiation while advancing is like, we might get Amazon, a few of them to unionize. We might get Starbucks to unionize and stuff like that. But the overall goal is to make sure everybody is able to eat and provide for their families. So it goes beyond just those companies. I used to drive rideshare, and every day I would ask people how work is, because a lot of rideshare is driving people to and from work. So I'd pick them up, from Amazon. How was your day? A lot of them were like, "Oh, it sucked. I can't have my phone. I'm in a cage the whole day, running back and forth, just putting things in boxes." I don't think that can be very fulfilling, but it's a job. And Walmart, a lot of fast food restaurants, a lot of them are all the same. The people that drive Uber or Lyft, it's not, just drunk people. It's a lot of people going to and from work. And a lot of times they hated their jobs. I would ask them how much they would make. Everybody was making like 17 to 20. And then I would ask them if that's livable. And nobody said yes, that's livable. They can't afford rent or anything like that in California. Um, After that, I met like one person from Uline, which is a private company, and they pay their people like 25 an hour, which is a little better. The highest company, I picked up somebody from Big Five, and they're actually unionized, and they pay like 27 an hour, which I thought was really admirable because a lot they actually say they can uh, be sustainable on that type of wage, and I think that's good. And people should, if you work 40 hours a week, um, be able to afford the necessities like shelter, food, and savings. Savings is important because nobody can predict the future.
Grows. Number 22. Know how to end things. In 1937, Lyndon Johnson won the election for a Texas congressional seat with the help of his friends in the party, defeating the older and experienced politicians. Not wasting a second, he humbly took to them, thanked them, and expressed his hopes for future collaboration, successfully. Show humility in victory and let fresh wounds heal. It's in your best interest that everyone accepts the outcome, comes to terms with it, and moves on. The exit strategy. Ende gut, alles gut. Part 5. Unconventional, dirty war. Weave a seamless blend of fact and fiction. In the Second World War, the Allies made use of key tactics that would cloud and slow down Adolf Hitler's decision-making before the invasion at Normandy. They set a doppelganger of General Montgomery in a theater far away. In England, they set up what looked like an army, but wasn't. Misinform your opponent. Make him see upside down, while you see what is at all times. Make
This goes to today's type of things where women's rights are being trampled. I'm not going to say by who, but it seems like a lot of women rights that they fought for are being trampled.
a weak spot.
And the women in our lives are important. We need them. It's very important. They deserve to have their rights. They deserve to have somebody speak up for them. They deserve a voice. And I don't think it's right that a lot of people are shutting them out of the conversation.
Look strong. Make a strong spot look weak. Do the opposite of what your opponent is really wishing for. However, don't fully rely on deception. A skilled opponent might see through the illusion, play along, and beat you at your own game. Number 24. Take the line of least expectation. In 219 BC, Hannibal attacked the Roman army, baiting them through erratic behavior. As the Romans crossed the Trebia, they found themselves facing gigantic war elephants. Other times, the Romans tried to bait Hannibal, but to no avail. Great advantage comes from not meeting your opponent's expectations. Others have a mental model of you based on past experiences, stories, and conflict. By going against this image they've created of you, you surprise them in your favor. Number 25. Occupy the moral high ground. Martin Luther, a German priest, argued against Pope Leo X that only God can forgive one's sins, as the Pope was trying to earn money by selling privileges. Luther
See, that's disgusting. The church is trying to make money by selling privileges, and he come in and said, like, you can't do that. Like, if your church is corrupt, then your whole entire moral ground is corrupted. You know, I believe in God. I believe in stuff like that. And I think a lot of people are hurt by people that supposedly represent God and stuff like that. And they stop believing. and they turn their back on their faith. And maybe it's a test of their faith. Maybe it's something else. But it's like, everybody has their own Jiminy Cricket. Their own conscience. And your conscience, hopefully, will help you decipher what's right and what's wrong. And if you think, oh, I'm in this position, I know everything because I'm high and mighty, and you're doing things that are hurting people, you're wrong.
Revealed the hypocrisy, justifying his arguments as moral, attacking the reputation of the Pope, and refuting him based solely on the Bible. You're good, your opponent is evil. You create an us versus them dynamic. Demonize the other, and present your side as the virtuous one. However, you may lose support, seeming righteous and condescending. Number 26. Deny them targets.
That's another thing too, like the fake righteousness, the selective outrage. That's extremely prevalent in today's society. What I used to like about politicians in the history books is they were a part of a party, yes, but they would all have a platform on which they stood on. And people in the party's platforms were completely different, and that was completely fine. Now, today, the party has so much power. If you don't conform your ideas to the party, then you're ostracized. This is why it's like, I'm an artist, but as like a media person and stuff like that, I have to call the balls and strikes. I have to be fair to both parties. And I can't just be red or blue. I gotta think about what's best for America and then the world. And then probably, instead of like God, country, America would be like God, the world, family, country, in my eyes. But I have to think about that. I think that's probably the best way. God, the world, family. God, family, the world, then country. Or God, the world, and then family, and then country.
In 1812, Napoleon Bonaparte invaded Russia. His French forces of 450,000 were decimated to a mere 100,000, losing even more men on their retreat. The Russians were playing for time, drawing the French forward with little conflict, destroying any resources they could not carry. Guerrilla warfare works best on the minds of large armies, tiring and starving the enemy, using nature to your advantage by letting them freeze in the cold or dry up in the sun. When your rival is ready to fight, frustrate him through your absence. Number 27. Seem to work for the interests of others while furthering your own. In 1467, the Duke of Burgundy allied with England in the hopes of attacking Louis of France in unison. Louis, however, was informed of the Duke's intentions and allied with England in the same breath, crossing his adversary's plans. Make strategic alliances that benefit you. Do not hesitate to do favors for those who will be of help in the future. As you treat others kindly and generously, you put them in your debt. Keep in mind, rarely does anyone help you without an agenda. Number 28. Give your rivals enough rope to hang themselves. In 1635, the French founded l'Académie Française to protect their language from deteriorating. When the Bishop de Noyon was given the position of consul, his arrogant and repelling demeanor proved to be a threat to the cause. He was given a speech to perform with which he would make a total fool of himself. His blind spots didn't allow him to recognize what humiliation he would bring upon himself.
See, this goes to, like, if, let's say you're a presidential or you're in the cabinet. Like, what happened with JFK? Like, I think he was a president and certain people were lying to him. He's like, oh, I need to dismantle this organization that's lying to me. And then what happened to JFK? You can be put in a great position, but be powerless in that position because of the people you surrounded yourself with. And that's how people get compromised, and that's how bad legislation gets pushed. And that's an extreme detriment to our country.
At last, the bishop left deteriorating. When the Bishop de Noyon was given the position of consul, his arrogant and repelling demeanor proved to be a threat to the cause. He was given a speech to perform with which he would make a total fool of himself. His blind spots didn't allow him to recognize what humiliation he would bring upon himself. At last, the bishop left the academy on his own. Some individuals are inherently self-destructive. You let your adversaries end themselves as active agents in their own demise. As they overreact, hurting their own reputation, show your innocence. Don't interrupt your enemy when he is making a mistake.
Monzo.com makes Gantz great again. Yeah, you know what? I'm not going to say again, because they never were, and...
Number 29. Take small bites. In the Second World War, Charles de Gaulle visited Winston Churchill to ask for permission for a small broadcast to his fellow countrymen in France. It was a small favor, and Churchill didn't want to offend a fresh ally. De Gaulle spoke to his people who had been suffering under the Blitzkrieg invasion of the Germans.
Take small bites. So in this perspective is like building leverage for independent artists. The more independent artists we have, the less mainstream bullshit we have. I think a lot of artists that are promoted today are mainstream because they couldn't read their contract and they would just sign whatever to get on. And if you listen to it, it's highly sampled, highly repetitive, complete bullshit. Like a lot of artists today, whether it's rap or whatever, they're pretty much like the new NSYNC. They're put together. They're very nice looking, very polished, but they don't have that raw talent, that raw je ne sais quoi, or whatever the fuck the word is. And taking small bites out of that would be like influencing as many people to create their own record labels. It's only like $300 to start a business license, maybe $6 to get a LLC, and then once you have a LLC, you're not going to need a record company because you're going to be able to borrow to whatever you need to buy from your LLC. You just got to be good with money management and stuff like that. The things that they offer you are not as interesting as they once were, especially with the free flow of information. And I just want to compress that information, give you a strategy, and take small bites out of the music industry. And maybe when people recognize that they don't need them, they'll just work together instead of having to have a bunch of other hands in the pot that are dirty. I'd rather have share a meal with people with clean hands than, eat at a buffet.
De Gaulle promised to talk to them again the following day, which hadn't been part of the bargain, but Churchill played along. What harm could it do? De Gaulle became more aggressive, calling the French people to arms, gathering ever more support, eventually leading his newly recruited forces in Africa, creating the French resistance, and becoming all too powerful, step by step. when Churchill, regretting his decisions, and Franklin Roosevelt wanted to replace de Gaulle with a passive alternative, de Gaulle's supporters stood by him. In order to avoid confrontation, people will give you more leeway and give in to small demands. With short attention spans, they repeat mistakes, allowing your power to grow as you use time to your advantage. Number 30. Penetrate their minds. In Renaissance Firenze, the Medici discharged Niccolò Machiavelli from his post. Aiming to regain favor, he then wrote a titleless letter to the Florentine government on how to take over and keep power as a ruler. He didn't receive the thanks he was hoping for, but he kept writing, which improved his remaining life and immortalized him as one of the most influential writers on the art of governance and modern politics. After his death, the letter was published as The Prince, another manuscript as Discourses on Livy. Words are weapons.
And that's why I love Machiavelli so much. Just that the pen is mightier than the sword. And let's say I were to run for some type of office. If you have bad people around you, you're gonna not be effective in that office. So, the way that Machiavelli gained favor and influence is just by writing. He didn't need to be in the forefront or in charge. You can steer the ship of a nation with the pen. You can steer the ship of a nation with the pen. Mighty is the pen. Yeah.
Discharged Niccolò Machiavelli from his post. Aiming to regain favor, he then wrote a titleless letter to the Florentine government on how to take over and keep power as a ruler. He didn't receive the thanks he was hoping for, but he kept writing, which improved his remaining life and immortalized him as one of the most influential writers on the art of governance and modern politics. After his death, the letter was published as The Prince, another manuscript as Discourses on Livy. Words are weapons. Articulate and profound communication, the precise expression of valuable ideas, can lift you out of poverty, end wars before they begin, make powerful friends, and with a bit of luck, withstand the fall of time.
Articulate and profound communication, the precise expression of valuable ideas. So this goes back into the ideas of a fair wage, understanding that and not just giving the people lip service, actually devising a strategy and thinking about what actually is a fair wage. Because at the end of the day, is if the country keeps going like this, it's just going to implode. People are going to lose so much and be in so much misery. They have no other choice but to outcry. The people are in turmoil, and we need to pacify the people by actually thinking about them and putting ourselves in their shoes, and coming to terms with what would be great for the nation. If everybody's happy and they're making money, the economy's booming. If people are poor and stuff like that, they're going to have no choice but to turn to drugs and robbing people and stuff like that just to get away from their problems. It's depends on what kind of nation you want to foster and create. And the influence of a pen can change the mind of men. And bend them to your will. a bond that becomes stronger than steel.
Number 31. Destroy from within. Wilhelm Canaris infiltrated the German Defense Ministry. Adolf Hitler himself assigned Canaris in 1933, trusting his counsel, being impressed by his skill. It would take the German SS a full decade until they realized he had been working against them successfully. Troy's walls were unbreakable, their archers well seasoned and devastatingly accurate. But it was the Trojan horse that they willingly let inside the city, mistaking it for a gift that crushed them. Do not attack a fortification with full force. Use deception and destroy from within. Number 32. Dominate while seeming to submit. Mahatma Gandhi arranged a 200-mile march as a peaceful protest against an imposed salt tax. And deeming it harmless, the authorities stood idle, permitting it. The march turned out to be a big success, thousands walking the streets in support of Indians, but in disapproval of the British. The government was too late to sabotage the passive-aggressive move. Peaceful non-aggression can be more effective than any act of violence. Your animosity is subtle. While your opponent feels in control, since you don't appear to be eager for power, you covertly fight for your cause. Number 33. The chain reaction strategy. The Nizari were an organization pursuing its own interests by using assassins who hid in plain sight, becoming one with large crowds in the streets, only to emerge and assassinate their targets with a dagger, creating chaos and spreading uncertainty in what was once a familiar and peaceful surrounding, while increasing their power by recruiting anyone who felt betrayed by the state and its violent attempts to squash the rebellion. Unlike some would lead you to believe, throughout history the Templars had improved the lives of the common folk by building safe roads. The assassins, on the other hand, murdered to further their own selfish cause. However, not only evil can spread far and quickly through the chain reaction. You can be the change you want to see in the world. And in popularizing this sentiment, with your help, good may triumph over evil. An unknown monk wrote almost a millennium ago, "When I was a young man, I wanted to change the world. When I found I could not change the world, I tried to change my nation. When I found I could not change the nation, I tried to change my town. When I found I could not change the town, I tried to change my family. Now, as an old man, I realize the only thing I can change is myself." And suddenly,
I love that quote. And then the end of the quote is where it comes to, you gotta be able to be honest with yourself. And these are very honest lines. When I was a young man, I wanted to change my world. I found out I could not change the world. I tried to change my nation. I found out I could not change the nation. I tried to change my town. I found out I could not change the town. I tried to change my family. Now, as an old man, I realize the only thing I can change is myself. And suddenly, I realized that if long ago I had changed myself, I could have made an impact on my family. My family and I could have made an impact on our town. Their impact could have changed the nation, and I could indeed have changed the world. From chaos comes order.
I realized that if long ago I had changed myself, I could have made an impact on my family. My family and I could have made an impact on our town. Their impact could have changed the nation, and I could indeed have changed the world.
Alrighty. And that was the 33 Strategies of War, the animated, abridged version. If you haven't read this book by Robert Greene, I suggest you read it. It's a great book. It'll help you in life, business, and so much more. I read the 48 Laws of Power, and that helped change my perspective on life greatly. And I believe that quote is true, very much so. If I change myself, I could change my family, then I could change the town, then I could change the nation, and then the world. But it all has to start with oneself. Alrighty, that was awesome. Let's end this one and then go on to another one.